Do you have what it takes to be a ghostwriter? Let's find out. My eyes looked a little crazy there. It's really not a crazy video. Or is it? I'm Mary Ghostwriting, teaching you all about ghostwriting and the ghostwriting life with some silliness on the side and some sass and a lot of other S words, but not that S word. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay. So how can you evaluate your skills to see if you actually have the skills to be a ghostwriter? Never mind a writer, but a ghostwriter, because there is a difference. Writers need to know all of the things that I'm about to share, and ghostwriters have some extra asks that you need to be able to perform. So many people say they want to be ghostwriters, but one, they don't really know what the heck it is, what the profession looks like. And two, they're like, oh, I could never do that. And they have this huge imposter syndrome. And that's silly. Get rid of that imposter syndrome, because anyone can learn how to write, and I do mean that. It just takes some practice. And for some people, it takes more practice than others. Quick hair flip there. So let's start with your self-assessment. Okay, so first of all, do you have any experience writing? And how comfortable are you with your writing? So when it comes time for you to write things for people, do you just dive right in, or do you just sit there and stress about it and you just can't get your words out? So that's something you have to really honestly consider, because if you're not comfortable with just sitting down and writing something out and you're really self-conscious about it, there's a reason for that. And we need to dig into it and figure out what it is that is making you self-conscious. So do you have good grammar? You don't have to have great grammar when you're talking, because obviously I screw stuff up all the time. But when it comes to writing things, is your grammar good? Like when you were in school, was English a favorite topic? That helps, and if it wasn't, that's okay, because you can practice. That's the part that you can definitely practice. The part that's a little harder, that ties into ghostwriting, is learning how to adapt your tone and style to fit two things. Your reader, so that they'll actually want to read it, but also your writer, the person that you are writing, the author that you're trying to write for. So you need to be able to adapt, be very versatile and flexible, and speak, but mostly write, to adapt to their tone and style. So do you have experience writing a variety of different things and in a variety of different ways? And how do you feel about writing consistently? Because if you're going to be a ghostwriter, that's what you're going to be doing every day. So I spend part of my day interviewing people or researching topics, researching different areas of pieces that I'm writing. It's very research heavy, a lot of the work I do. But a lot of the other time is I'm interviewing people. And then most of the time, though, during the day, I try to write in the mornings, is writing. So I write every single day of my life, consistently. So how comfortable are you with writing every single day? I mean, you can take weekends off if you want. And finally, have you ever written for anyone, like for any kind of audience? So of course you've written in school and you've written for teachers, I'm sure, but have you written for like a publication, or have you written like cover letters, a variety of cover letters? That counts, because you need to adapt that to different audiences. Just really think about who have you written for and what mediums. What have you written? So let's take a little inventory. Let's have a checklist on that. Let me look at my screen because I have a little checklist. So we want to know about different writing styles, if you're able to adapt your tone and voice. And it's okay if you don't know what these things are. They're different, tone and voice. But have you ever had to adapt that to meet different styles, or for different people, or for different audiences? So that's another thing to write down. Are you confident in your grammar and sentence structure? Confidence is so key in grammar, and that's one that you really, 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 really need to practice. A lot of people don't. You'd be surprised. A lot of people who call themselves writers, they don't get a lot of work, or they don't get a lot of repeat clients because they have really crappy grammar. You can't just leave it for an editor. A lot of writers think they can. You can't. And then, do you find it difficult to write consistently, or do you think you will? Like, do you try to spend a few days this week and just write a little bit every day and spend an hour? I know it's a lot, but try to spend an hour each day for the next 3 days and just write. Just brain dump. Write stuff. Write it. See how it feels. And then, have you ever written for an audience, either professionally or personally? So that will give you kind of a sense, those things. If you think about each of them, you're like, okay, where am I on the spectrum of all of these questions that I just laid out for you? And how do you feel about each of them? Because that is your starting point in your journey to become a ghostwriter. But that's not all. That's just the beginning of our video, silly. Come on. So you have that, all right? You're going to commit to trying to write for a little bit, but I'm going to give you some targeted work, some targeted practice that will really help you understand how you can look at your work through a critical lens. So we want to look at the clarity, the structure, the tone, grammar and style, and your creativity. So let me run through each of these, because you're going to evaluate your writing that you're doing each day on this set of criteria. In your work, clarity. Is your message clear? Can readers very clearly understand what you're talking about? And when we get to clarity, we're talking about should kind of form a circle, your writing. So whatever your starting synopsis, whatever your idea is, your big idea that you're starting with, it should connect back to it at the end. So is it clear? Is there a clear flow? You like that? Flow through your writing? And can someone read it and be like, oh, that's what this is about, I get it? Or is it kind of like, what is this bit of jumble that I'm trying to struggle through? And speaking of clarity, its sister is structure. So like I was just starting to say, that flow. What's your structure like? And so this will take you back to when you were younger. Hopefully in school you learned about outlining. So it's not a bad idea ever to have an outline. And that's one of the ways that I have taught writers to ghostwrite for me, is I take them through that process. It's very basic, and some people kind of feel insulted, but you'd be surprised how many can't do this, is to have an outline in your head of the piece before you start writing, because it's super, super easy to get lost and zoom off into a tangent somewhere where it doesn't even relate to what the initial thrust of that chapter or that book or that piece is supposed to be. So it's really easy to get lost if you don't have an outline. And tone, a lot of writers have trouble with tone. So you write very differently based on who it's for and what it is. So if you're writing a memoir, for example, it has, depending on who it's for too, has a very different feel from like a business ebook. I mean, that's just, and so the tone that you'll have in one is very different than the tone that you'll have in another. And I mean, like, it'll be more formal or informal. It might be humorous, it might not. So, but that also ties into voice. Tone and voice are very closely related, but they're also very different. And that's a conversation for another video, but you need to pay attention to tone and voice. We'll just tie them together and make sure that it works for the piece that you're writing, because you can't just be consistently having the same tone and voice in every piece. It doesn't work. And especially doesn't work when you're a ghostwriter, because you, again, back to that flexibility and adaptability, no one should be able to recognize you as you in your writing, or else you're not a very good ghostwriter. So basically the voice is unique to a person or an organization. So the voice is what makes them them, their secret sauce, their little quirky things that they say, or the way that they portray themselves. It's them. Okay, that's the voice. Now the tone, that can change from piece to piece. Sometimes they might have a serious tone, other times they might have a more informal tone. It depends on the genre or whatever the piece is that they're creating. So the tone is variable, the voice is pretty consistent. So now when you're evaluating your grammar and your style, you have to be a harsh critic of yourself here, and you have to really run it through Grammarly or something and see, are you making a lot of errors? Like, do you use passive voice way too often? It's not the passive voice is always bad, but are you overusing different phrases? Is your punctuation bad? That's a bad one. Do you have a lot of misspellings? I mean, misspellings, I guess, can happen. It's not misspellings so much, honestly. That can be corrected, that can be caught by a Grammarly or whatever, but it's the grammar, it's the there, which is, I guess, spelling too, but it's knowing when to use who and whom. It's It's just having a sense, it's being well read. So that's one way that you can really help your grammar, is to start reading more. Because the more you read, the better your grammar will become. It's the practice. It's your homework of what you need to do. And it doesn't honestly matter what you read at all, because I used to read a lot of Danielle Steele growing up. And it really, it saved me. It taught me how to write. So read Danielle Steele. You're welcome, Danielle Steele. Yeah, like Danielle Steele really needs my endorsement. And creativity. Now this one, if as you see, I have my world of dolls. Do you have something that helps you, that can like spark your creativity? You can't just sit in a drab room. I mean, I guess you could, but are you creative? That's what it comes down to. I mean, maybe you don't need all of these distractions around you to be creative. For me, I need it. I love it. And I need to have a lot of things around me to help reset my brain and get it off of whatever it is I'm working on. I'm never writing about dolls. I don't think, maybe I have, but I'm not typically writing about dolls. So it's something different. So how creative are you? Can you come up with a story? Do you like to tell lies? Do you like to tell stories, make up exaggerations? Like, practice. So you can be as creative as you free your mind to be. So free your mind to be more creative. That's another skill that honestly can be learned. Now, another thing to think about is that it's really hard to evaluate yourself. Like I said, you have to be a really harsh critic of yourself. And it's also really hard to find someone around you that will give you honest feedback. Because I'm telling you right now, if you ask your best friend, your spouse, your mom, they're gonna say, yeah, this is really great, because they want to encourage you and they don't want to hurt your feelings. Now, I'm not saying that only someone who gives you negative feedback is worthwhile, because that's not true. I'm sure your writing has really great parts to it, but there are also always challenges that you can work on. There are always challenge areas. So what do? You go online and you find a writing group. You create a virtual writing group with some other writing friends. And I have a Facebook group called Ghostwriting for Profit, and there's, over 8,000 writers in there. You're more than welcome to pop in and say, hey, it's a free group, by the way. So you're more than welcome to pop in and say, hey, I'd like to start a writing group. Would anyone, and this is my genre, or this is my focus of what I would like to be able to write. Would anyone like to be in a writing group with me, so we can kind of workshop our ideas and we can learn from each other and give each other some critiques? And I'll help you set it up. So if you pop over there, or you can do it anywhere else you want to. I was just trying to give you some easy access to some writers. You're welcome. You can also just go on like LinkedIn and you can see what kind of jobs or other writing job boards. Just go online, look around and see what are people looking for in writers. So you can get a sense there. I mean, it's hard to find on those job boards. I should make a list of, I haven't had to look in a long time. And I know that must seem crazy, but I'm on LinkedIn and I'm connected with so many different people, and I've written for so many different people at this point that I get all referrals for writing. So I don't really have to go out and look anymore. I'm gonna try to find, that'll be another video where I try to find all the different, that's a great idea, me, all the different places where you can look for jobs just to even get an idea of the writing skill that's required. But if you just look around at, if you look at other writers that exist, let's say this, on LinkedIn, and you look and see the skills that they have listed, you can get a sense of the kind of writing. They actually share writing that they publish, and you can look at their pieces and say, okay, this kind of jibes with how I write, or maybe I have some work to do. So it will give you something to compare yourself against. So that's one way to do it. And really pay attention to how they turn a phrase and how they structure their pieces and how they structure, like you won't find a lot of ghostwritten books other than the celebrity ghostwriters, because for the most part, people don't say, I've had a ghostwriter. They just don't. And celebrity ghostwriters are always named on the celebrity ghostwritten books. So don't believe those people who say, oh, I've written for celebrities and you never knew it. They're lying. Have you ever seen a celebrity not name their ghostwriter? I haven't, so, but what do I know? Let's say you've done all of that and you realize, oh crap, like I need to work on all this stuff. Like my stuff isn't, I have trouble with clarity. I don't really even understand what voice is. My grammar isn't so great. Forget it, I'm just not gonna do it. Don't give up. Why would you give up? Why would you do that when you did all that work to figure it out? So you figured out that you have these challenge areas to work on. So now let's work on them. Let's get them fixed and let's have you become a writer. I mean, come on. How does anyone become anything? Do you think people are born knowing how to write? No, of course not. So don't be silly. If anything, be disappointed in yourself for thinking that. If you've gotten this far to really truly evaluate your skills and to take the time to do that, I mean, you're already doing better than like 90% of the people who just jump in and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and they really can't write. So you're going to start off worlds ahead of these folks. So those are the people that won't be successful, and you, sir or madam, are the person who will be. So look at that. Seriously, you're doing a good job. I think that's probably enough info for right now. I don't want this to be too long, but what I would love to hear from you, what you can do for me, is once you go through all of this stuff and you consider really do a real soul searching, all that stuff thing about where you are as a writer, leave a comment, let me know what you figured out about yourself, and that way it will help me sort out which videos to do first to help you get well on your way to becoming a ghostwriter. All right. Oh, and be sure to subscribe, okay? See you next time.